So I'm reading Tretiak's autobiography. I love that he called his own autobiography Tretiak the Legend. Like, I think if I ever write an autobiography, I want it to say Molly Hall. She was okay. So this book is wonderful. It's really interesting for a lot of different reasons, and not all of them the ones you may be anticipating, which are things like Molly's weird obsession with Soviet hockey, although that is real. Molly's weird thing about goalies, also real. Molly's weakness for a strong jawline. Come on. I like this book for a lot of reasons. I think Tretiak in particular, and I don't know that this would be true of everyone else, but really, really valued the idea of intellectual strength. I mean, that makes sense a lot for the goaltending position since so much of it is mental. There's this really interesting part where he's talking about a conversation he had with Tarasov, and Tarasov says, you know, at a certain point, your body can't react faster than the puck is coming at you, and there's nothing you can do about that. And the only way that you can possibly stop those pucks is to use your intelligence and to be able to sort of read minds, which the focus on that and that kind of intellectual play in this book is really fascinating. And I haven't seen a lot of it in other athletic autobiographies. That being said, I've literally only read hockey autobiographies. I have not read a single other book about any other sport. No, not one. One of the things that he talks about early on is the notion of taking one for the team. And that's something that is very prevalent in hockey culture in a very intense way. Not that that is absent from other sports, but it is a really core part of hockey culture. He talks about the notion that there are times when fighting through an injury is the right and brave thing, and that there are times when fighting through an injury is not the right and brave thing, and that in one of those instances you're doing something for the good of your team, and in one of those instances you're doing something kind of out of foolhardiness and stubbornness and personal pride, and that time is not the right time to play through an injury. I'm not a doctor, so do what your doctor says. And I hadn't really thought about how many things they won. You know, like years and years of winning. Tretiak started playing for the Red Army team when he was like 15. Like, I was coloring on my Converse sneakers. Tretiak had already basically been chosen to be the next best goaltender in the world. So, wasted youth, I guess. But the relationship that he developed with Tarasov was not something that I had known that much about. I knew that, obviously, everyone knows that Anatoly Tarasov was a fairly intense guy. But the relationship that he had with Tretiak in particular is really, really fascinating because from what I understand, he basically developed this idea of what he wanted the ideal goaltender to be, and then saw Tretiak one day and was like, you're gonna be it. Come along with me, young child. I've now own you. So if you are really interested in goalie psychology, I think that this book is an excellent one to pick up. The part that I'm going to read from this comes from how Tretiak decided that he wanted to be a goalie. We trained for an hour and a half 3 times a week at the Central Army Sports Club. I was a forward and always tried as hard as I could because I loved the game so much. But there was one thing that confused me. A month had gone by and I still hadn't received a real hockey uniform. There's a shortage of uniforms, explained my first coach, Vitaly Georgievich Erfilov. I'm sorry, Russia. At the time, we didn't have a goalkeeper on our team because nobody wanted to play that position. I decided to try, so I went to the coach and said, if you'll give me a hockey uniform, I will be the goalkeeper. The coach looked at me carefully and said, aren't you afraid? What's so scary about it? I replied simply. How could I know how much it hurts when the puck hits you, or how difficult the fate of a goalkeeper is? The thing I wanted most at that moment was a real hockey uniform, and I got it. So if you are in the market for a new hockey book, and you want something a little bit different than Bob McKenzie's Hockey Confidential, pick up this guy.